I've been kind of doing a theme the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be revisiting the theme again today because we're in a really powerful time in the year. We're in a really powerful time in terms of global cycles. And, it's a time. I actually was having a conversation with my husband this morning. He does not believe in progress. And I don't know why he doesn't believe in progress. I think that's funny. I actually do believe in progress. And, one of the things that's important to understand when we think about and talk about progress is we're all part of progress. We are sovereign and collaborative, if you will. I believe that we're collaborative with Source, that we co-create with life's intelligence, and that the choices that we make on a minute-by-minute basis move us forward in the full alignment of the potential of the human story, which is an ever-expanding potential, and so consequently, I think, is progressive. And when we talk about sovereignty and our part that we play in the growth and the expansion of the world, our personal stories and our personal connection to our own sense of value and our own sovereignty are essential. So last week I talked a lot about faith and the Gate 55 and the role that the Gate 55 plays in the evolution of humanity and the solar plexus mutation. Today I'm going to talk about where we are in the global cycle, and in particular we're going to look at a little bit related to the cross of planning, which is actually the current incarnation cross of the global cycle that we are in. We're getting ready to leave this global cycle, which is a 400-year-long cycle. So we're at the end of this 400-year-long cycle, moving into 2027, where we move into the incarnation cross of the sleeping phoenix as our theme collectively. And for us to really understand where we're headed, we also have to know where we've been and what the purpose of this last 400 years has been. We've had a lot of change in the human design chart, in our collective consciousness, in the way in which the world works. When you think about this global cycle, think about where we were 400 years ago. Holy moly, have we made some huge changes, right? And potentially, depending on your mindset, some huge progress. Hopefully you think it's progress. I do think it's progress, even though right now we feel like we're in this really disruptive cycle that's got a lot of upheaval in it. Obviously on a personal level, many of us are still really struggling to connect with personal sovereignty. And certainly I would say the work that you do individually to free yourself has the potential to liberate not only yourself, but others. It's not the only step. And I say this a lot, and I mean this. It's not the only step. Doing your inner work is not the only step, but it is the most important first step. And from that alignment, then comes the next right step to take the actions in the third dimensional level to make the changes necessary to bring this world into alignment with things like peace and abundance and fulfillment for everyone, justice, equitability, all these big ideals that we feel so deeply in our heart have to start first with us, each and every one of us, starting the process of holding the energy for those. We have to literally become what we want to see in the world. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to activate it fully on the material level, but energetically, you have to occupy the energy field that is what you're seeking to build. So if you want to be sustainable or create sustainability, if you want to be green in the world, you have to first be sustainable yourself. If you want to create abundance, you have to first occupy the information field energetically. That is abundance. There is so much wisdom in that statement, which I believe was Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. You literally have to become that. You have to hold that energy and embody that information field in order to begin to build it in your material world. All right, that's my preamble for today. So I was joking yesterday. I said this week's evolution report is brought to you by your favorite saucer, not the flying kind, but the kind you put under your cup. So a lot of what I want to do this week is challenge you to rethink self-care. Because we're really well trained, to talk about, you can't give until you have a full cup, right? We say that a lot. We talk about that a lot. You got to keep your cup full. But if you're giving from your cup, it's inevitable that you're going to drain the content of the cup, right? You can't give from the cup if you're giving from the cup without lowering what's in the cup. So if you're giving from your cup, you're still going to be putting yourself at risk for boom and bust cycles in terms of resources, in terms of physical health and wellness, in terms of energy, in terms of anything that you're putting out into the world. We think self-care is that process of refilling the cup. But if you want to get yourself out of the boom and bust cycles and into a state of sustainable capacity for giving and sharing, you have to actually fill the cup to overflowing and fill the saucer underneath the cup and then give from the saucer. And that's a different way of thinking about this. Self-care isn't about getting yourself back to baseline. Self-care is about maintaining the baseline so the baseline is consistent and building above the baseline and giving from above the baseline. So this week with the sun in the gate 40, the gate of restoration, and the earth in the gate 37, the gate of harmony, we have this ongoing theme here about filling up your cup to overflowing so that when you are restored, you can then create harmony. You can really make good and powerful conscious agreements, because if you're not making those agreements with an overflowing cup and you're going through cycles of depletion, it's just inevitable. When we go into relationships, probably because we've been fed this adage that says, my soulmate completes me, my partners complete me, right? There's all kinds of cute little things we say about partnerships and committed relationships, about, holding each other up and filling each other's cup. And certainly you want to be in a partnership where somebody has their hands on your back 24/7, where your partner is going to be your biggest champion. But it's your job to fill your cup. And what happens a lot of times when we don't go into partnerships and agreements with an overflowing cup and a deep sense of our own value, we project onto our partners that they should be filling that cup for us. And then we have expectations and sometimes unconscious agreements and unconscious quid pro quos. And then we start to feel resentful and angry and brokenhearted because our partner didn't complete us or take care of us. When in fact, to quote Lizzo, you have to be your own soulmate, right? And that means you got to fill your own cup to overflowing. And if you don't walk into any agreement with a full and overflowing cup, you're going to be making agreements and bargains and quid pro quos that might not be sustainable. Now, this is true, of course, on a personal level. This is true in your most intimate relationships. It's a great way to not become codependent, right? It's also true on a community level. If you're not full to overflowing and conscious and aware of where the boundaries are, there's a potential for you to either be the one that does all the work. How many of us remember like junior high and high school, right? And the group projects. Oh my gosh. Okay, I just want to know, on my team, Betsy, Jamie, Kristen, Cindy, when we did group projects, were you guys always the ones that did all the work? Why are you calling me out like that?
Somebody has to do it, right? And it's not going to be them.
I know you guys. So, for many of us, we were the ones that did all the work, right? That's a violation of a boundary. We don't serve people when we end up doing all the work. So when you go into community agreements and situations and organizations and committees and you're not holding true to your cup, then you end up depleting yourself because you end up doing all the work. The same is true also on a global level, on a collective level. At the heart of most war, if not all war, is the idea of not enoughness, right? And people try to overcompensate for their not enoughness by declaring themselves to be the most enough of all, right? I'm the way. I know what's right. I've got the answer. My people do this the best, etc., right? And then we go into war. And sometimes we go into war because we feel like other people have more than us and it's not fair. Now, that's a very, very, very simplified version of the world event. So please don't send me emails afterwards. I get it. It's a lot more complicated than that. But really, I do believe in a lot of other ways it's very simple. At the heart of conflict is not enoughness. When we think we're not enough, when our people think we're not enough, when our culture says we're not enough, when other people don't treat us as if we are not enough because they don't feel like they are not enough and they're overcompensating, that whole not enoughness is a giant mess. And it's a giant mess that's really up for us to heal. That's really sort of the last thrust of this 400-year cycle, is for us to begin the process and to heal those places where we have personally, on a community level and on a collective level, bought into whatever side of the karma you're on, the idea that there's not enoughness in the world. Because the Gate 55, which is what we talked about last week, says, oh yeah, there's enough. There's plenty for everyone all the time. That's what the Gate 55 promises. But we have to learn how to harness that energy and how to live in alignment with our own enoughness so that we can then see the enoughness of others and then lift all of us up into a new state of enoughness. That is something we have to do first energetically, as I said at the very beginning. It's not the only step. There's a lot of work involved here. We've got to be turning around and lifting other people up who don't have enough yet or who aren't seeing it yet. But we can't do that for others if our own cups aren't full and if we're not fully embodying our own enoughness. So that's preamble number 2 for today. So I want to spend the rest of our time this morning reading you an excerpt from my book, The Quantum Human, which is, today I want to read to you sort of a summary of where we've been and this global cycle that we are coming to the end of in 2027. This is an excerpt, as I said, from my book, The Quantum Human. And if you want to get a copy of that book, you can certainly get a copy of it on Barnes & Noble. You can get a copy of it on Amazon. I want to lovingly and gently say that if you have a dream about having a hard copy of this book, which I think you should have because it's a pretty book inside. It's got lots of full color images of all the different mechanics of the shifts and changes in the gates. But I also just want to encourage you to get it because all these book publishers in the world right now and the distribution people are telling us, get your books now because we may have a book shortage soon because it's harder and harder to get printed materials out of China, which is actually where most books are printed. And there is a paper shortage coming. So if you're thinking about buying books for the holidays, you should get them now just so that you have them handy. So that's a weird aside, just a little asterisk mark. Okay, so sit back, enjoy your coffee or your tea, and let's explore the Will Center, where we've been and where we're headed over the next, where we've been for the last 400 years and where we're headed. So the Will Center, as you know, is the tiny little triangle that's just to the right of the G Center, the diamond in the middle of the chart. In 1787, though the actual human design chart changed. We split from being a 7-centered chart to a 9-centered chart. Basically, the heart chakra split into 2 centers, the G Center and the Will Center. So the Will Center is part of the heart. It's part of the heart of who we are. The second split happened in the solar plexus chakra. The spleen and the center emerged, and the emotional solar plexus center emerged. This sets us up for another change in the body graph that's happening in 2027. Now, just so that you're aware, this isn't like some cataclysmic event someday in the middle of February in 2027. We're not all going to poof change into something different. This is already in motion. The changes that happened in the chart in the late 1700s were the end result of shifts in consciousness. They happened at the end of the scientific revolution. The changes that are slated as part of our upgrade at the end of this decade are already taking place in the emergence of consciousness or the evolution of consciousness. So let's talk a little bit about what happened and what does it mean. So the shift from 7 centers to 9 centers gave us a profound new perspective on our personal self. The Will Center also referred to as the ego, is the center that in traditional human design interprets value on the material plane. The will center is also a motor. It's actually the seat of willpower in the chart. Money, which is the ultimate way in which we measure value on the material plane, is associated with the power of the will center. It's easy to understand where the idea that money is power comes from. This translation of value on the material plane has been a growing theme on the planet for the last few hundred years. The will center is connected to the throat center via the channel 2145. So we call that the channel of the money line in traditional human design. In quantum human design, we call this the channel of sustainable resources. Anytime a motor connects to the throat center, it gives us the potential for manifesting power. The emergence of this center and this channel gave us the ability to be sovereign over our own identity. This energy made it possible for us to choose things like who we love, what we do, to follow our own path, and to serve our own will. I mean, if you think about that, that's a relatively new thing on our planet, right? Every element in the human design chart is simply a potential. So type, profiles, centers, channels, and gates are just possibilities. How you choose to experience and express them is a function of choice and consciousness. And as I've been discussing, it's the meanings that you have about who you are that actually create your life. As we grow and evolve, we gain more control over how we choose to utilize the potentials available to us. Awareness and consciousness expansion gives us the power to consciously choose how we're going to experience and express our potential by giving us the ability to consciously influence what we attract and experience in our lives. In the beginning, when the will center was a new part of our evolution, this energy gave us a drive to build, explore, conquer, and exploit the material world. The pronoun I became the prime directive for creating, and self-fulfillment was an aspect of this exploration. The evolution of the will center gave us the energy to liberate ourselves from outdated power structures such as the church or the monarchy. It gave us the freedom to love who we choose and the ability to pursue what we desire, all big strides in human evolution. As our consciousness evolved, so did the use of our personal will. Our emergence into becoming a nine-centered human marked the beginning of the late modern period of history, which included notable historical milestones like the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, and the emergence of the Western world as the new leader in global wealth and power. Not necessarily always great things, but that's history. The will center is the center that is associated most commonly with material resources, usually money. And in a world that's in the midst of a huge shift in consciousness, the definition of resources is changing. In quantum consciousness, resources not only include material resources, but energy, sustainability, community, connection, information, and relationships. The more evolved purpose of the will center is to align us all with sustainability, community, truth, and value. The highest expression of the will center is to use the me to serve the we. The misuse of our personal will and our need to evolve our definition of value, personal will, and what is truly valuable is triggering cycles of disruption and upheaval. Major cycles of disruption are always a part of evolution. Whenever we hit a critical mass for growth, the old ways of living and creating become unsustainable, and things fall apart as a symptom of growth and expansion, which is very much what we're in right now with this Uranus and Taurus position that's holding us for the next few years. We are disrupting major thought forms and consequently institutions and systems that are part of the expression of these old thought forms. Disruptive cycles serve to uproot us from old patterns that no longer work for our evolved consciousness. Our old meanings, stories, and identities are shattered, and we are given new opportunities to redefine who we are and engineer a new direction in life that is more in alignment with our evolved energy. These disruptive cycles are powerful choice points that are crucial aspects of evolution. When we go through these cycles, it's normal for old energies and beliefs to come into conflict with new ways of thinking and being. This conflict gives us a choice. We can either move forward and embody the new consciousness with grace and ease, or we can fight and resist our own momentum. Either way, we're going to evolve and change. This is true on a personal as well as a collective level. Your own inner struggles with your growth and your willingness to face the vulnerability of releasing your old identity and rewriting your personal narrative are mirrored in our collective experience. Our society's outdated institutions and economic structures have to fall to give rise to new ways of being in community with each other. Resistance to this process is lessened when we each do our own inner work and redefine ourselves. Personal evolution is added to the energy of evolution of each other, and it creates a critical mass that influences how we evolve. The choice to move forward peacefully rests in our hands. As we reach the end of our current global cycle, we're facing this powerful choice point. We can either move forward and embody this new energy in an equitable, sustainable, and peaceful, or we can fight each other up to the end in the same place. The big task at hand right now is to choose our path through this cycle of change. So we're going to change no matter what. It's going to happen. But how we're going to experience the change is kind of up to us. The energies highlighted by this global cycle, the incarnation cross of planning, we need to master during the cycle. The mastery, or not, of these energies are preparing us for the upcoming shift into the new global cycle, which is embodied by the incarnation cross of the sleeping phoenix, as we talked about last week. Because the incarnation cross of planning focuses on the will center, one of the centers that emerged when we shifted from 7 to 9 centers, we see that understanding the evolving nature of the will center is crucial for us to cultivate more choice and influence over how we will experience our evolutionary shift. In the beginning of our experience of will, we use this energy to cause in the material world. We use science and formulas to measure the world and to give us confidence that we could formulate systems to create more material goods and more money. Material gain became the measure of success, worth, and the more you had, the more power you had access to, and the more valuable you were. Personal gain became the goal of the will. There's an irony, though, in the will center. Even though it's often referred to as the ego in human design, and in its low expression, it can be very selfish, the channels connecting to the will center are almost exclusively in the tribal circuit, the circuit that has the root theme of sharing. The only non-tribal channel on the will is the channel 2551, the channel of higher purpose, that unifies the personal self with the higher self. So the tribal configuration of the will center tells us that our personal self is designed to be of service to others, and the wealth we create through the will center isn't for personal gain and to enhance our personal status. It's wealth that is designed to be shared in an equitable and sustainable way. And let me just add here, not from your cup, but from your saucer, right? So if you look at the configuration of the will center in the cross of planning, it's actually defined by the 3740, the channel of administration, which is what our sun and earth are transiting this week. So this week, the sun is in the 40, the earth is in the 37. It gives definition to the channel of administration. The highest expression of this channel defines the power of the will center as the ability to make sustainable agreements that create the peaceful administration of resources and energy. Let's read that again, because that's what we're focusing on this week in the highest expression. It is the ability to make sustainable agreements, create the peaceful administration of resources and energy. Now, because this channel defines the will center and the emotional solar plexus, that means you have to have your sense of value in place to make these sustainable agreements, and you have to be in the right energetic alignment. So, as we come to the end of this global cycle and we master the evolutionary challenge of the will center, we're now moving into an era where the value of the will is no longer how much you have, but how much you have to share. Okay, that's huge, right? It's very different. We are redefining personal value, saying that we are all inherently valuable simply because we exist. There's nothing we have to do to prove our value. We are learning that every human being is an integral part of the story of humanity, and with this understanding, realizing that to be sustainable in the world, equitability and peace are crucial to create enough for us all. Okay, so we might not be there yet as a species, but this is the target. This is the evolutionary target of where we're growing. And we can't get there if we don't first deal with our own personal pain and the perception of our own self-worth. So the channel 3740 is also the energy stream that calibrates the heart, connecting the power of the emotional solar plexus to the will center and ultimately to the identity center, the heart chakra. Our emotional energy calibrates the magnetic resonance field of the heart, the magnetic monopole, we call that in human design, creating a state of heart coherence and influencing what experiences and manifestations we attract into our lives. This channel and the ability to use emotional energy to consciously calibrate the heart gave us, for the first time, the ability to consciously choose and create our destiny and our life experiences. Okay, so this still, like I said, it's a pretty new deal. And we're still learning, most of us, right? So this evolutionary shift marks a giant leap in our human creative capacity and is helping us learn to create by virtue of emotional alignment rather than pushing with the sheer force of our will. The will center can only be calibrated to the level of perception of our own value. Okay, I want to read that again because it's so important. The will center can only be calibrated to the level of our perception of our own value. If you don't perceive yourself as valuable, there's nothing you can do, no external thing you can glom to yourself, no things you can have in your house, no sparkly things you can put on your finger, no beautiful cars you can drive. Nothing is going to penetrate you as in terms of your perception of value until you first perceive your own value. You have to know your value first to be able to really see the value of the world around you. The more valuable you perceive yourself to be, the more value you are willing to create for yourself. The more you create for yourself, the more you have to share with others. So if you increase your sense of value, not only are you creating more, you're creating more to share. So your ability to expand on well-being for the world and for others increases exponentially with your own sense of worth. So this is not martyrdom. The age of martyrdom is over. And by definition, because the end result of martyrdom is death, is not sustainable. So this evolutionary shift is calling on us to actually heal the karma of our own self-worth so that we can use the energy of our own enoughness to to calibrate our hearts and to create the manifestation of enough in the world. It's imperative that we heal our self-worth and embrace a new definition of the value of our lives and the value of life. It's also vital to embody the secondary theme of the Will Center, sustainability. We're exploring how to create enough in a stable and an enduring way. So the true power of the Will Center is not in how much material wealth it has, but in its ability to sustain resources over time. The Will Center as a motor is designed to need cycles of rest as part of staying sustainable. So if you have a defined Will Center in your chart, you have the power to push through, of course, those cycles of depletion and sort of push through those cycles of exhaustion with your willpower. But as you may know, if you have a defined Will Center, so that means if you have that little triangle to the right of the diamond in your chart colored in red, it means you can only do this for a finite period of time before you burn out. If you have this center open, and most of you will, you don't have the will to push through exhaustion. And if you're not taking consistent and vital cycles of rest, you will also burn out. So built into sustainability is the idea that we need cycles of rest. Not to refill our cups, because our cups are going to stay filled, right? But cycles of rest and renewal so that we can continue to stay overflowing. And that's an important but subtle distinction. Our collective conditioning has taught us that to make money, you have to work, and to make more money, you have to work harder. Most of us are, in some way, embodying the trauma of feeling that we are not enough and have trapped ourselves in a cycle of feeling that we must prove our value with our work and money. We fail to understand that we need rest in conjunction with work in order to be able to work and create sustainably. We've been trained that rest is idleness and laziness, failing to properly sustain our energy and creating a cultural epidemic of burnout and exhaustion. And if you haven't watched my TED Talk, I did a TED Talk, it's on TED.com, about the real cause of burnout. And the statistics on burnout are mind-blowing. Like more than 65% of people in the United States report themselves as being burned out. That was a study, I think it was a survey that was conducted in 2018. I suspect after COVID, we probably have much higher numbers now for many reasons. So in quantum human design, the will center is called the resource center. It functions like an energy bank. The more energy and resources you put in, the more you have to share. The need to take a cycle of rest and restoration is hard to do when your value is tied to how much you feel you need to work to make money, and when your self-worth is tied to how hard you work. So how many of us still buy into the idea that our value is tied to our busyness? By the way, that's very different than our value being tied to our productivity. And if we're not taking consistent cycles of rest, and we're just busy without focus and direction, we can be very, very busy and actually be depleting our value, even in the traditional old way of looking at value. Just saying. So if you think you don't deserve to rest because you haven't made enough money or you haven't been productive enough, then you run the risk of depleting source center, further causing your value to decline. Quantum human design shows us that our sense of self-worth is rooted in the gate 26, the gate of integrity. There are 5 kinds of integrity associated with the gate 26. So if we question our value, we may also experience a breach in any of these 5 areas of integrity. So if we experience a breach in any of these areas in our life, it also has the power to affect our self-worth. So we get into this loop. We stop valuing ourselves, or we don't value ourselves. Some of us never learned. Consequently, that affects us. It affects these 5 core areas of integrity. And then when we get out of integrity in any of these 5 core areas, it continues to affect our self-worth. So we're in this really downward spiral with self-worth and integrity. There are 5 kinds of integrity. The first kind of integrity is physical integrity. That's experienced when our bodies are healthy and vital. The second kind of integrity is called resource integrity. That's when we use our material resources in a sustainable way. The third kind of integrity is called identity integrity. That's when we feel like we can fully manifest the value of our authentic self and we don't compromise who we are for the sake of money or resources. The fourth kind of integrity is moral integrity. This is the courage to do the right thing and to make sure that your actions are honest and aligned with higher principles and values. And the fifth kind of integrity is energetic integrity. This is what we experience when we consistently and deliberately rest and take care of ourselves so that we have the energy to engage with life in a sustainable way. We are facing a massive crisis in sustainability on the planet, which is another symptom of the imbalance of will center energy. Our definition of value related to resources and our failure to ensure the sustainability of our resources has us teetering on the brink of a potential collective depletion and scarcity for everyone. Global warming presents us with a collective need to redefine how we use resources and how we can best sustain them in order to ensure the survival of all life on the planet. So if we think of global warming as kind of a metric of what's happening to our collective idea of sustainability, you can see we have some work to do. So we can't create sustainable collective initiatives if we ourselves are not sustainable on a personal level. So if you're struggling with your own sustainability because you're burned out, and you're experiencing depleted resources, or if you've been struggling with being in integrity and you can't make sustainable choices, then that's the place where you have to start your work first. That's actually the lesson of the sun and the earth this week. That's what we're being reminded, that you need a pause, you need a break, you need to rest, you need to restore yourself. That's the sun in restoration. In order for you to get back to baseline, and then you've got what lifestyle changes do you need to make so that you're always at baseline, your cup is always full, and ready to overflow into the saucer, and then you give from the saucer. When our will center energy bank is, and our need for energy is much like a drowning person gasping for air, you are only focused on getting the next breath and not much beyond that. We have to heal our own sense of value in order to be able to create beyond what is needed in the immediate moment. From being situationally creative or reactive to being deliberate when our cup is full to overflowing. When we're locked in our own inner battle of self-worth, our need to prove our value externally keeps us from seeing the value of others. We compete for energy from others when we perceive our resources as limited instead of sustainable and abundant, which I believe is the source of most, if not all, war on the planet. When we value ourselves enough to rest or nurture our bodies, to use our resources wisely, to be authentic with our self-expression, to do right by others, and to nurture our sustainable energy on every level, it becomes easier of every living being on the planet. We liberate ourselves from the fight of sustainable creativity and abundant harvest. Being sustainable means you create sustainably. Our ability to create sustainably gives us enough for ourselves as well as enough to share the highest expression of the will center. So a really, really powerful week this week to explore. Do you love yourself? What numbers are you doing? Are you using to define your value? Do you need to change that? Do you value yourself? What can you do to increase your physical integrity? What do you need to do to change your relationship with money? What do you need to do more to fully express your authentic self into the world? Do you need to realign in any places where you might be out of integrity? Do you need to set better boundaries for yourself or for your energy? Do you trust the universe? Do you believe that there is enough for everyone? And do you believe in your personal enoughness? And do you think that if you let go and trust, there will be enough for you and everyone else? Big, big questions for us to contemplate this week. And for many of us, that contemplation hopefully is pretty simple. And it just means a good time to really explore, how do you need to rest, nurture, and take care of yourself so that you are fully living from the deepest, most pure expression of your personal worth and your value. Also, just want to remind you, as you're raising your hand, everything that I just talked about today is in written form and in video form on our Clubhouse page, KarenCurryParker.club. If you go there, you can sign up and get a written version of this week's evolution report. We'll post a little video of the evolution report. There's all kinds of great goodies and freebies and resources there. Go check it out. Also, just want to remind you that our annual International Human Design Conference is next week, believe it or not, starting on Friday, September the 10th. We have a pre-conference workshop, Writing by Design, for those of you who are wanting to write or publish a book, or you have a book that you're ready to publish. Friday night, our own Clorinda Mann is going to be talking about releasing the chains that's changing the nature of karma, and looking at the karma of slavery and enslavement and how that has impacted our sense of worth and the future of the world and what we need to do to heal. We have Richard Rudd coming to speak with us. We have Rosie Aronson coming to speak with us. We have Kim Gold is going to be there speaking with us about asteroids and feminine creativity. Our own Betsy Batista will be there Sunday morning, leading us through an integrated quantum alignment system tapping session. We have Brynja Magnuson's going to be there talking about incarnation crosses. Alana Heim will be there talking about human design and money. Evelyn Levinson will be there talking about projectors and her new book. Amber Clements will be there talking about reflectors and her new book. We're going to have a panel of conversation about collaborative practices in businesses and evolving quantum economies and human design and all kinds of really fun and amazing, great things. So be there. If you need more information about conference, humandesignconference.com. And I think there's a link to that also on the KarenCurryParker.club page. There's still time to register. Most of the event will be actually online because most of our participants can't leave the countries that they're in because of COVID. So you can, of course, attend virtually. You can also attend live. It's in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Sort of nicely, beautifully nestled in a beautiful boutique hotel at the base of Pikes Peak. So join us. And so, Sky, hi, welcome. How are you today?
In the last few weeks or months, I should say, we've been talking about rewriting or addressing the narrative that we have about ourselves, and it's been a repetitive, I guess, conversation that's come up multiple times, and I guess it's been written in the stars, it's come from the planets, and I've really felt like I've engaged with that. In fact, one thing that I did was that I took that and I thought, okay, if I was going to rewrite the narrative of my life, what would it be? And I just dropped all the presumptions I had about myself and the limitations I had, and I wrote this really grand story. And I mean, I've got a couple of those gates that like to really go beyond the beyond, and touch the face of God and go beyond the universe. And then I guess for me as a generator, a 3-5 generator, the feedback I got from the universe was so quick and actually on par with this big grand story that I wrote that I think I got a little bit like, oh. And so much so that was like about a month ago. And so now I'm sitting in this space where, and as you're talking about this feeling of self-worth and, my own alignment with that and the stories I'm telling about myself, I have 4 different job offers, and they're all related, like all skill sets I have, but they vary so much in the pay scale, and I guess the freedom that some of them offers. And it's so funny because the one that offers the most freedom pays the most, but then there's that part of myself that sort of like inches away and goes, ah. And in the grand story I wrote about myself when I was contemplating, rewriting my own narrative, when I thought, okay, write down the amount that you think you can earn, and then I want you to stretch. This is me talking to myself, to where it gets super uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah. And then I got really uncomfortable. I was like, but I did it. And then what came back is there was a job that came back that was offering me the exact super uncomfortable amount. And so as a generator, I'm sitting here in my life, and I'm based here in New Zealand, so we are in another lockdown, which might not be so different to some people all over the world, but it's our second big lockdown, I guess I could say. And the viability of work and being able to make money in a lockdown is a big thing at the moment. And so I'm being pulled between these options, and I guess I don't know, the greater question, like how, in rewriting this narrative of who I feel I am and who I would love to be and who I want to be, and as a generator and a 3-5 who also likes, variety, what would you say would be the best thing for me to do in this space? Thank you. And that's me done talking.
Okay, Sky, so you have a secret weapon, and that's your sacral. So I hear your head and your will center duking it out. Like, I should do this, and this would be amazing. And oh my God, am I worth it? Can I have this? How much happiness and goodness am I willing to allow myself to have? What's the right choice? So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that are yes or no questions. So can you unmute yourself for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you remember the sacral makes a sound in response to truth. And that sound is either going to be uh-huh or right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you a series of yes or no questions. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
In your profile picture, are you wearing glasses?
Mm-hmm.
Do you live in New Zealand?
Mm-hmm.
Do you love your new personal story?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Of all the job offers that you've gotten, are there any job offers that stand out to you as particularly delicious?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know which one that is?
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay for you to take that job offer?
Oh, yes. Wow. Okay.
Okay, so talk to me what just happened there, because your sacral went offline.
It's interesting, because I told my mind and my ego to shush, and we're gonna go from the sacral, and I was feeling it and go aha, and then I was surprised at my last answer, because the job that is delicious, that makes my inner being go, voila, and really like high five myself, high 10 myself, is the one that not necessarily pays the most, but in terms of, I don't know, like values wise, it makes me feel like, yes, this is the thing where I'm contributing, I'm growing, I'm seeing the results, and it's it's still a good thing. But I was surprised, because a part of, and maybe that was my head, was also feeling like, no, you can do better, or no, you can make more money, or So it was surprised.
So here's the next question: is it okay for you to take that job offer and negotiate for more money? So is that the next right step for you, Sky?
Mm-hmm.
And if they come back with the same offer, is it okay for you to accept that offer? Is that offer going to be financially viable for you?
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay for you to start at that place if that's where you start?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to, before you go into negotiation, write a story about your value and how much value you'd like to create for yourself on the material plane in response to your work?
Mm-hmm.
Is that your next right step?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think you have an action plan.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Sacral is really simple.
It just bypassed my head's its machinations about lockdown and what that's going to mean, what that might mean. Love it.
Yeah, wow. It's a good superpower to have. Well, okay, so I want you to send me an email, Karen at quantumalignmentsystem.com, and give me an update so I know where you're at, okay?
Okay, yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Karen.
Good luck, Sky. I'm looking forward to hearing your story.
Whew, yeah, me too.
Hey, chop up. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. I'm working on the physical and financial integrity areas, and I've just a random insight. I've found out how it's easier to apply for more podcast appearances, although I only have that step in mind. I don't quite know where else I would really take the listeners. Like, I don't have an offer in place quite yet. I'm still working on the program design.
So, do you have the energy? Are you emotionally aligned with the next right step page?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, do you need to take action now? Is it time to take action?
Some actions, yes.
Okay. Do you know what actions you need to take? Okay. So, can you make a commitment to yourself this week to take one of those actions?
Uh-huh.
Is that what you need to do next?
Uh-huh. Keep doing the small things.
The small things are all little steps to the big things.
Uh-huh.
So good. So does that give you the clarity you're looking for?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Awesome.
I'm in the process of rewriting my story. I tried that week you did the course, and I felt like I was pushing against divine timing. And I say this every week. I have 3 little ones at home. So when they go to school, maybe I'll find time, or maybe that's my open root center. But I've Saturn in my gate 40, my conscious Saturn. So this is the lesson I'm trying to learn all the time.
Yep.
Okay, but I don't have, like, is it the North Node that you're supposed to kind of, by 40? Like, I don't have a timeline on learning my Saturn.
So your Saturn will definitely, especially as a projector, it'll potentially really highlight the end of your 20s and the end of your 50s, but that doesn't mean you don't play with that energy off and on throughout the course of your life. Certainly, I would say as a projector, it's sort of put there as a bumper to remind you that self-care and nurturing and taking care of yourself and keeping your cup full are essential, like extra uber essential for you as a mama of generator people and a spouse of a generator person. So, you really would do well to set a good self-care boundary for yourself around retreat, renewal, if you can, getting yourself out of the aura of your family for a day or two or longer to make sure that you keep your cup full. And you demonstrate also for your children what it looks like to value yourself and take care of yourself, because they need to see what that looks like too.
Okay, great. I'm also a 2-4. So...
Oh, see, double whammy. Your 2 also says, whoop, hold up, Shelley. We need some time alone here, lady. Right? So you got a double whammy on that. And, nothing in the chart is there by accident. It's all there for a reason. And I would certainly say for you, it's probably, things that are in your chart to help you stay sustainable so you can keep, contributing to your family in a meaningful and sustainable way.
Okay, great. I'll keep working on it. Since my friend introduced me to quantum human design, I think it was last November, I had all these. I knew all of this all along. Like, I remember having a breakdown when I was pregnant with my third at 39, crying in a restaurant to my husband. I don't want to go on vacation with you and your family because it's not a vacation, it's a trip. And I can't give to you all anymore. And he, of course, didn't get it. But I have all 4 open motors. He has all 4 defined. He's got them all in sync, running. So I do feel like I've been able to set some boundaries the more I learn about myself and ask for help from him and the rest of the family, I guess.
Totally. And, learning how to ask for help, and especially as a no motors projector, constructing a template for a lifestyle that keeps you sustainable might really encourage you to I really want to encourage you to get out of the box with your thinking. Some of the things in just running a household for you, if you're able to financially, are things that I would encourage you to really delegate. Like, for example, maybe you need to delegate having somebody come in and cook for you guys once a week and put meals in the freezer. Or maybe you need to delegate by having somebody come clean the house. Or maybe you need to, instead of delegating, or it's not an either or, maybe it's a both and, you maybe need to say, look guys, I'm going to go away for 1 weekend a month. I'm going to have Queen Weekend. I'm going to take myself to a cabin or somewhere where I can be in the integrity of my own aura, and I'm going to leave you guys. And it's not personal. It's what I have to do so that I can really show up as the mama I want to be or the wife I want to be. And, it takes practice setting those kinds of boundaries. And sometimes, it takes having to confront your own old ideas about what you quote unquote should be doing to be a good mama, good wife, good woman, etc. And to really give yourself permission to say, wait, I'm going to write my own definition about what that means. And it's going to be your definition. I wouldn't look to anybody else for a definition. I would check in and ask yourself and really feel into what's going to be good and right and sustainable for you. And it's not easy. It's not easy. And I'm telling you this as a mama. Now, I'm a manifesting generator, so I had a little bit of a different story. But my husband at the time, the father of 4 of my kids, was a no motors projector. And we did not sustain his energy well at all. And it ended up really literally driving him over the edge. And I'm not saying that that's what's up for you, Shelley, at all. I'm just saying it behooves you to redefine for yourself what you need and want, and to embody it and to claim it and to model it, because your kids need to see what that looks like. What you bring to your relationship, even your marriage, will be exponentially greater when you're standing in your value and claiming that value through your actions. And it sometimes means you have to quake in your boots while you ask for, you don't have to ask, you tell people, this is what I'm doing, this is what I need. You're not asking, you don't need to ask, but you need to set it up and go do it. And recognize that you deserve it. You'll be better at doing everything you're doing if you give this to yourself. And it's not always easy to create it, but do it anyway. It'll pay the payoff. And I'm telling you this as an old mama and a grandma now. The payoff will be so worth it in the end, especially if you have daughters. For them.
Yes, I have 3 daughters. So thank you. And I am 42. I'm at burnout. And my husband does try to support me by saying, go get a mani-pedi, go off with your friends. But his idea of self-care for me is not what I need. I actually, when you say go to a cabin, I'm like, can they all go to a cabin? And I just stay in my house?
They could do that. They totally could do that. Again, you get to decide what works for you.
Which I appreciate you saying that, because I do. I have some friends who are initiators, and I'm like, why are you all calling me out? Why do you want me to come? I don't want to go anywhere. So I do need to figure out what I want. Thank you.
Totally. That's your job, and from now until October, get some clarity on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
You deserve it, Shelley. All right, Shrisha. Well, I'm sorry, we're kind of up on the top of the hour, but I'll take your question quickly, and I'm sorry to rush through it, darling.
Okay, I'm so sorry. But okay, just quickly. So I'm a projector, and taking all my care and self-caring is so important. But coming short now, it's been a really long time now that I feel called to do some, going deep down, do the spirituality. I'm a writer, became a full-time writer after leaving my job last year. So just, pull and push, thing, should I just do this for myself and shut down everything and focus on myself or not? So, yeah.
Are you asking me if you should do this?
Yeah, yes, because as a projector, it says I've more of self-caring and take rest. So I realized that it needs to take in a rest part. But do you think that it's really important to shut down everything and taking really good care of as being a projector?
I think that is the most important thing for you to do as a projector. But here's the piece that I just want to say, Shrisha.
Sure.
You don't necessarily have to. I do want you to take stock of all the things in your life that might not be adding to your energy and that might be depleting you. Because sometimes it's taking stock and giving yourself permission to drop those things that are depleting. That's essential for you. And really getting clear, where is my energy going? Where am I losing energy? And making sure that you're moving out of your life, if you can, those things that might be draining you. Now, it's tricky for projectors, and this might not be your case, but in some cases, and this is for anybody that goes through burnout, regardless of type, sometimes you have to take stock of the financial situation. Sometimes it's not so easy to just say, okay, I'm going to just quit everything. So if you are in a situation where you can't financially afford to stop everything, and that happens sometimes, continue to do the minimum amount of work necessary to make bank, to make your bills. And then really be strict with yourself that when you get off work, when you're done with working, you're off. Nothing else happens that's depleting. So if you have to work for money, do the money piece. And do the money piece with the clarity of this is what I'm doing for my support, and stay open to the possibility that there might be other ways to create support during this time. And don't do anything else beyond that. Be religious once you clock off or you clock out or you're off. Be religious about taking care of yourself after that. So, but definitely take stock of anything and everything that might be depleting you, and whatever you can move off your plate, try to move it off your plate, Trisha.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you, and good luck to you. Good luck. All right. Again, everything we did today is in writing on my Clubhouse page, KarenCurryParker.club. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Have a great, great week. Have a happy, happy birthday, Jamie. And just a quick heads up, we will not be meeting next week because of Labor Day. We will be having a holiday next Monday. So stay tuned. Watch your Clubhouse. If you're a part of our Quantum Human Design Club, watch the club announcements. We'll probably be meeting at some other point next week just to do some fun things, but no Monday morning Quantum Evolution Report next week. So have a great, great week, and we'll talk to you soon.